Good afternoon, Pathfinders. This is Director Hector. Wanting to present to you another video for a Pathfinder honor. Today's honor that I want to share with you is the Stamps honor. The Stamps honor is an honor that I think is like a dinosaur and maybe not be available much longer. As you see, more things being used. Not many people sending letters. Most correspondence being through email and text messaging. The old method of writing a letter and mailing that letter is not very many people do that anymore. And even with bills and things like that, what used to come with stamps on them, no longer do that. Now they come with pre-postage things. Like, I don't know if you can see this very well, but it's a pre-posted imprint. This one is from Bermuda that came. I don't know if you can see very well, but it's a pre-stamped stamp, not the beautiful stamps of past times that people collected. So if you want to get this honor, it's something that you're going to have to get to right away. So if you want to download the worksheet, we have it on our website. Also, if you can't get to that, if you want to go to Advent Source, they have downloads for the honors, and we'll go over the stamps honor. There won't take very long. It's not that difficult of an honor as far as completing the paperwork. But the majority of the time is just being patient and building up a collection of stamps, because it requires you to have a collection of 750 stamps. This is an honor that on my sash is pretty high up on top of my sash. It's an honor that I began to work on in 1989 when I went to the Friendship Camporee. When I went to the Camporee and we went to the different honor stations, there was a man there that truly loved this kind of thing, and he was a collector, and he had a lot of extras. He had like a big drum filled with stamps and allowed us to take as many stamps as we wanted. And with that, we started our collection. I was impressed by that and came home and continued to work on that, completed that honor, the stamps, and I want to share it with you, the stamps honor. So the first two things on the worksheet says that relate briefly the story of the beginning of the Postal Service in your country, which is America. And two, how is the history of our country told in postage stamps? Instead of going over that, I'm going to recommend you to do something. Go ahead, when this video is over, I'd like for you to go to YouTube and look and watch a video called Stamps: An American Journey. It's an interesting video. It was made by the U.S. Postal Service in conjunction with the History Channel. It's only about 12 minutes long. And it's pretty informational, and we'll share those and give you those answers. So the answers for numbers 1 and 2 you can get from just watching that video. So when this video is over, go ahead to go to YouTube and watch this video, Stamps: An American Journey. It's only about 12 minutes long, and it doesn't take that long, and you'll enjoy it. You'll see how stamps are created and what they go through to create those stamps. So we're going to move on to number 3. Number 3, what are the rates for first class mail in our country? The rate goes up all the time. Currently, right now, if you were to purchase a stamp, the rate for first class mail right now is 55 cents. Right now, with Postal Service, in years past, they would put the amount of a stamp. Let me see if this one shows it. They will put the amount of a stamp on the stamp. It will be printed on a stamp. For instance, here, at this time, the postage rate was 32 cents. Now it's 55 cents, but they don't print that very much anymore. Now what they have, what they call forever stamps, and it's like this one here, where they no longer put the value of the stamp. But this stamp, even though if you were to purchase it today at a 55-cent rate, in 2 years from now, if the rate of stamps goes up 75 cents, it will still be worth 75 cents then, or it will be worth 75 cents then. It's a forever stamp. The value of the stamp will always go up with the rate. So now it's a good idea to buy stamps and hold on to them and use them for as long as you can while the rate is still 55 cents. So what are the rates for first class mail in America? First class mail, 55 cents. Number 4, what country does not have its name on its stamps and why? The answer to that is the country of Great Britain. Great Britain, when they first decided to make stamps and became their tradition, they didn't put their country on it because it was just meant to be a local stamp. So within itself. So why put the country Great Britain on it? It was just to be used in-house. And that's that's how they started, and they decided that was going to be their legacy. So they've never placed the name Great Britain on any of their stamps. That's just what they call a local stamp. Number 5, and I hope I'm not moving along too quickly, but I don't want to bore you either. This stamp collecting for me has always been fun, and I want to show you why in a little bit. But as I show you my collection and parts of my collection, but there's things to know about stamp collecting. Number 1 is coil stamp. What is a coil stamp? Coil stamps. Here go several examples. Coil stamps were stamps that were sold in a long strip. They were in fact, all 5 of these strips that you see here, and there's one more on the back page, were part of a Flags of America stamp collection, and they came in a long coil, and I just cut them so they could fit on this page. But the coil would have been something like this. And they just go, the stamps would roll off the coil like that, and that's what coil stamps were or are. You're still able to find those at the post office, and you can purchase them in any value you want. If you want 10 or if you want 100, you can buy them on the coil stamps, the coil roll up. Sorry. Booklet stamps. Booklet stamps you don't see very much anymore. Let me see if I. They were stamps that would come just in a booklet, and that's what you would just rip off a stamp at a time, and then you would hold on to the booklet, and it's something that you could easily fit in your wallet, or they would have like 10 stamps within the booklet, and you could just use the stamp 1, stamp number 2, then put the rest away, then come back to a stamp number 3, stamp number 4. You don't find them very much anymore. Now what you find are these little sheets that have about 10 stamps on them, and I don't have any of those, but I want to show you I'll show you when I come to that in my collection, as I have these pages here that I want to show you. Okay, number or C of number 5. Know the meaning of the following perforations. Perforations. I'll show you perforation and perforation gauge at the same time. On a stamp, you would have here an example of a stamp, and all those holes that would be cut out of the stamp are called perforations, and pretty much all they were placed there for was just to make it easier for you to rip the stamp out of a booklet. Well, for collectors, they want things to be just right. So they created this thing. It was like a ruler, this here on this side, called a perforation gauge. The perforation gauge would measure every 2 centimeters of a stamp. And you can see on this bottom picture, in the 2 centimeters, there's only 10 and a half perforations that are perfect. And then you come to a half. The top picture is what the collectors like to get the most, and that's the perfect perforations, and they would be 11. There would be 11 perforations for every 2 centimeters. So the perforation gauge would measure those perforations and a perfect stamp with what they would call a perf 11, or when you could see all 11 of the holes created when it was cut away, when it was broken away. So perforation and a perforation gauge. Know the definition or the meaning of a definitive stamp. A definitive stamp is any stamp denomination that was sold. Here's a collection of definitive stamps. They just had different amounts on them, ranging from a penny, 3 pennies. Just you could if for instance, if you had a stamp right now that was a 37-cent stamp, but first class mail is 55 cents, you would put that 37-cent stamp and then maybe a 3-cent stamp and a 10-cent stamp and a 5-cent stamp, so it could equal 55 cents. And that's what these stamps would help you to do. But they're definitive stamps. They're just common stamps that would be in the store right now. A very common one is the U.S. flag stamp. That is a definitive stamp. If you go to the post office and you ask for stamps, they're most likely going to give you the stamp with the American flag on it. It's a definitive stamp. Next, a commemorative stamp. A commemorative stamp or stamps that were released by the post office that were directed at a specific event, a place, a person, a theme. And those were commemorative stamps. Actually, here's an example of a definitive stamp. I don't know if you can see that American flag. Okay, we're going to do something with this stamp in a little bit. An example of a commemorative stamp is this collection of airplanes. Stamps that are dedicated to a specific place, event, person, a thing, has a theme. Let me just go ahead and share with you some of my collection then as we get there. I have my stamps in a specific theme. Some of those are, for instance, my definitive stamps. But to me, that's a theme. I have stamps that I have with an airplane theme, dating way back to the 1950s and 1960s. Any stamp that had the theme of airplanes or aviation. Here is another set of definitive stamps. This was called the Americana series, but they're definitive stamps. Different denominations. Again, if you had a coil of some of these, if you had a 37-cent stamp and the postage was 40 cents at that time, the rate, you would just maybe add your 30-cent stamp, 37-cent stamp to 3 penny stamps or something like that. And then I have another theme of the American flag, and I collected as many stamps as I could find that have the American flag. Here is an example of a booklet I actually do have. This was the booklet, and you have all the stamps inside the booklet, and then you would use 1 or 2 at a time. This one I saved the entire booklet. I wanted to have a copy of a booklet. All the stamps that dedicated to the American flag. However, some of these stamps, like this one, is a definitive stamp. But this one is a commemorative stamp because it's highlighting the event of the Olympics, the moon landing. Here's one that's dedicated to September 11. Here's a whole sheet of stamps for moon landing. And a series that was released, I collected, I just bought the entire sheet of different flags, our American flag in all of its different forms. Just show you a few more, and then we'll move on. I have stamps just dedicated to animals, and I have them in my collection in alphabetical order. Airplanes, American flag, animals. This was a cool series that came out, and I had just bought the whole sheet of different animals, from the different states. And then the post office went to some really creative things with stamps and started putting pictures. And within the pictures, you'd have 10 stamps. But the pictures were too cool to pull the stamps apart, so I just kept a whole sheet. And have insects and bugs. So they've made stamps with many different themes. Themes with people. It's an African American history series. And I'll show you more later, but I'll stop with this series. Christmas. The very first Christmas stamp right there came out in 1962. In 1962, and I was able to find the gentleman who sold old stamps, and I was able to find all of the stamps from every year to the present. And this is probably the only time where they ever do stamps with a religious tone, and that's at Christmas time. And to be, I guess, not to offend anyone, they got to a point where they would create two different stamps. They would produce a traditional stamp and then a religious themed stamp at Christmas. So you'll have the stamps like this one, this set here, for maybe people who didn't want to talk about Jesus on their envelopes. And this one here. So every year they produce two different kinds of traditional and then a religious. And then they sell the two variations. So I have every Christmas stamp to this year's stamp. I'll show you more of those later. Collectors like myself, there's two different ways to display your collection, to preserve your collection. And it's still part of number 5. What is a hinge? A hinge were these rectangular shaped sticky pieces that you will put in like in a scrapbook, so you could insert your stamp into it and it will hold your stamp in place. You don't find them very much anymore. Not very many collectors still use that, but it's one of our questions here. And if you were to see somebody's collection from maybe many years ago, they would probably have the hinges on their collection. But most people would use now is what I've been showing you are the plastic mounts. The plastic mounts are just these sheets where you would stick the stamp inside the sheet and it would hold it and preserve it. And that's what I do with my collection. these plastic sheets. This is a literary arts collection that I started. I never finished it. I'm sure they have more. I actually really stopped collecting these about 15 years ago. This is from before 15 years. But just the only one that I really add to are the Christmas stamps. The love series, and all the different stamps that had to do with love, and most of these stamps will be used for weddings, invitations, Valentine's Day, and things like that. So, how to display the stamps, the hinges, and the paper and the plastic mounts. Most people don't use the hinges anymore. You might still be able to find them if you go to Hobby Lobby, but they have a section for stamps in the collections of stamps. But most people would use the plastic mounts, and that's what you'll find the most of. Okay, number 6, have a knowledge of how to soak stamps with paper and how to dry them. This is how to remove stamps from the paper. Okay, here I have a bowl of water. You're to use lukewarm water. And here I have 2 stamps that I've ripped off the envelopes. All we're going to do to remove the stamp from the envelope, so that you could eventually put your stamp inside one of these plastic mounts or on a hinge so you could display them on a page and preserve them, is you would stick these into the water and make sure they're completely submerged into the water. So I have this bowl, I have lukewarm water. I placed the stamps into the water, and I'm going to let them sit for a little bit, and then we'll talk some more and we'll come back to it, okay? The next thing you need to do, and this is for number 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then this honor is done. The patient part for you would be to build up a collection, and hopefully you can do that by several ways. Maybe asking your parents if you can go through some old letters that they might still have in a box or something, and get the stamps off of them. You can ask your parents, your grandparents. And you look through the mail now, but you probably won't find very many now. That's, like I'm saying, it's something that's not so popular anymore. It's just easier to send an email and send a text message. You can go to Amazon and you can buy them. You can go to Hobby Lobby and buy them. I saw in Hobby Lobby they had a pack of 70 for like $5. 70 old stamps, and they're already used. They've been peeled off the envelope, and they've been dried, and they've been preserved. But they're still, that's how I started my collection. When I went to the camporee, I took a bunch of stamps from that man's barrel that he allowed us to take, and I started a collection with. And I'm going to show you some of those that I still have. You can get them from, I saw on Amazon, you can buy a bag of 1,000 stamps for $15. But the fun way is to build something that's going to be personal to you, where you remember where it came from, you remember who sent you the letter, but it's still something. So the requirement for the stamps honor is to build up a collection of at least 750 stamps. You might not find all of those at home right now, but you could begin collecting and allow to take the time to build a collection. I didn't get the honor in 1989. I began to work on it in 1989 when I went to the French camporee. But I built up my collection, and my collection took several years to build up. But again, there are other resources. You don't have to wait several years. You can go to Hobby Lobby and buy them by the bag, or Amazon and buy them by the bag. You can go around and see how many you can find around your house first. There's a cool book that you can get at the post office also. This is an older version of the book. This one's from 2006, but they're books that will show you pictures of every single stamp that was ever produced. And a cool thing that you're going to see is when you watch that video, Stamps: An American Journey, is how they were preparing to a series that was going to come out in 2006 of motorcycles, and how cool it was, how it went from the thought to the actual stamp, and how much work actually goes into it. In the beginning, in the history of stamps were not meant to have. They were meant to show people's faces, but initially they only had people who had already died. They wouldn't show people who were living people, and for the most part that's still true to today. And that's why a lot of the pictures you'll see, or a lot of stamps you'll see, are like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and things like that. So number 7 through 8, 7, 8, and 9, 10, and 10. Make a collection of at least 750 stamps, no two stamps alike. Properly classify these stamps. If you want to collect international stamps, and you put them in order by country. If not, you make some kind of system like I was just showing you. I have them in alphabetical order: airplanes, American flag, animals, going all the way Christmas, going to love, going to different themes. Number 9, mount your stamps with glumed hinges or the plastic mounts. Both of these things you're going to be able to find in Hobby Lobby. Some of you may have stamp stores that sell stamps. I know that when in Asheville there was one near where I used to live. They sell just to the collector and people that have this as their hobby. So mount your stamps and then choose a topical idea and develop a display of at least 9 pages. And that's what I'm sharing with you today. So I'll finish with, let's see if our stamps are ready to take out of the bowl, to take them off of the covers or off the envelopes. And one of the big tools for a stamp collector is a magnifying glass, because they like to see all the details in stamps. And another way to count the perforations is, if you don't have the gauges, just to look manually at it with a magnifying glass. And also tweezers. Let's see. This is not working very good because I allowed my water to sit for a little while while I was preparing this video. And it wasn't so lukewarm anymore. And here I've removed the stamp from the envelope, and I place it on a little napkin so it could dry. And usually you lay it down upside down and you let it lie until it dries. And that's how you remove a stamp from the envelope. And you let it dry, and then you can put it on your display page. I hope you have fun with this honor. I hope this is something that you have an interest in and will pursue. And if not, it's okay. But just it's cool and it's colorful. It's informative. All the different stamps and all the different series that have come out over the years are so interesting and cool. I want to share with you some more of my favorites. Well, this is a series that came out in 1990, and it had different stamps with things dedicated to that decade. The 1900s, the 1910s, the 20s, the 30s, all the way to the 1990s. I have nature stamps, all the different flowers. I'm trying to get to Olympics. I have stamps that were produced dedicated to the Olympics, the different Olympics of the different eras. The 70 or 1980 Olympics, I believe, 84, 88. The 1996 Olympics that were held in Atlanta, and more. Let's see what another cool series before and I love my muscle cars. Famous people, John F. Kennedy. Star Wars stamps that were released several years ago. More famous people, actors and actresses, and Bob Hope, Lucille Ball and Bob Hope. Again, remember, most people are going to be people that have already died. Another one is I really like my collection, my space theme stamps that are dedicated to themes of outer space, sci-fi, and then stamps that are dedicated to the United States, the different states, all the different stamps that were produced with theme. And remember, these would be called your commemorative stamps. All the different states, so all the different stamps, all the different states. And that's where the coil stamps that I showed you earlier were in this section. And then some just miscellaneous random stamps. Stamps that just Disney stamps. The Simpsons stamps. And the last set I bought recently was a set of stamps that were dedicated to Hot Wheels. Just another interest of mine. So I hope this is interesting to you. Watch the video, and God bless you. Have fun with this, and until next time, I prepare a video, an honor video. God bless you, and I hope you're doing well through this coronavirus quarantine time. God bless you. See you real soon. Take care.